Louise and I'm a sales educator for PFAFF in the UK, and today I'm going to give you a run through of our entry-level sewing and embroidery machine, the Creative 1.5. So although it's entry level, it's got plenty of high-end features. It has the original IDT mechanism for even feeding top and bottom, a large 200mm sewing area, plenty of space for all those big projects, and 150 beautiful 7mm wide stitches, as well as 2 sewing alphabets, the block and Cyrillic. The tension's automatically controlled, so there's no dial, and the machine changes it to suit the stitch that you select. There's a built-in needle threader and a speed control so that you can go as slow or as fast as you want, whatever's comfortable. And thread snips means the machine cuts the thread at the touch of a button, and you can set the needle down position so that every time you stop, all you need to do is lift the presser foot to pivot and the needle will stay down. There's a large 150 by 240mm embroidery area, so that's the hoop that's supplied with the machine. I think you'll agree that's quite large. You can get an awful lot in there, and you've got the option to buy other hoops if you wish. We do some smaller ones if you want to save on stabilizer or do smaller designs, plus we do a magnetic one that fits, an endless hoop, all sorts of different things to use all your different techniques. There's 101 embroidery designs. They're supplied on a USB stick. They're all really good quality, the ones we supply, with a wide selection of techniques and sizes and things, plus there's 2 fonts in 3 sizes each. But also for free we also include our intro software, which works on PC or Mac, and that allows you to adjust, personalize, combine your designs on your computer screen, ready to transfer to the machine via USB. So you don't have to use the little screen on here if you don't want to. You can have that really big on your computer screen in colour and do all the arrangement and everything before you start. But best bit, you can even convert the true type fonts or open type fonts that are on your PC or Mac and make those into embroidery fonts as well. So you're not limited to what just comes with the machine. You've got all those fonts on your computer as well to have a go at. So yeah, you're not going to run short of fonts. So I'm now going to show you exactly what this machine can do, and we're going to start with the IDT system. So I've come in nice and close so you can see the IDT mechanism here, and I'm going to show you how this works. The whole idea of a walking foot is that it feeds the top and the bottom layers of fabric evenly. Normally you've just got a set of feed dogs underneath that are feeding the fabric through the machine forwards or backwards, but there's nothing on the foot side of the fabric that's helping to feed the top layer, so sometimes you can find there's a bit of creep between the two. So that's why we have a walking foot. But IDT is slightly different to a walking foot. If you're going to put a walking foot on, first thing you've got to do is take off the presser foot. You've then got to take off this foot holder, so you have to undo this screw here, take that assembly away, bring the walking foot in, put the lever on top of the needle screw, screw the walking foot to the shank of the machine, and so on. So a little bit fiddly. With the IDT it's as simple as clip it on or clip it off as you see fit. So whenever you need it, that's all you need to do, just bring it down. And it works with any foot that's got the cutout in the back. So we've got loads of different feet that work with this. Your zipper foot, your blind hem foot, loads and loads of different feet that actually come with your machine, but also as optional extras that you can use this walking foot mechanism with, or IDT. So I'm going to show you how it works. I've taken the foot off. I'm actually going to unthread the needle as well, because I want you to be able to see clearly what's happening here. If I just set the machine to a straight stitch, which it is, yeah, that's fine. I'm going to set it to a fairly long straight stitch so that the movement's quite exaggerated. So let me just take that up a little. We'll move that to 4mm and put the foot down. Now it's not going to sew because I've not got the thread in there, but you'll see what happens. So let's go. Let's slow that right down. So as these feed dogs are moving backwards, so is the IDT mechanism at the back. So it's being fed from the top of the fabric and the bottom. Now, if I press reverse, you see it's changed direction. Now a walking foot can't do that. Walking feet are only geared to go forwards. Let's let that go again. It'll change direction back to its normal. So a walking foot can't go backwards and forwards, but the IDT can. And the ease of taking that on or off makes it, yeah, so easy to use. So let's put a foot on. Up, there we go, that went on easily enough, didn't it? And I'm just going to thread my needle. Oops. There we go, thread the guide at the top. And the needle threaded down. Just knock the foot off. There we go. And we have just like a little all stylus or something just to bring that thread through, makes it a bit easier. Properly. There we go. Right, we're all set and ready to go. So I've just got a piece of quilting cotton here. In 2 layers. I'm going to set my stitch length back down to the normal, which is 2.5, and I'm going to set the needle down. And we're just going to sew with this and see how it looks. Take it off dead slow there. Now press the thread cut button while it's still moving. It ties off and it cuts the thread and just waits for me to take the material out of the machine. There's my lovely neat stitching. I think that's super. And if we turn it over and look at the back, there we go. Really, really easy. So that was normal quilting cotton. That should be pretty easy, shouldn't it? Let's try something a little bit more difficult. So I've got here some quite slinky jersey fabric, really quite springy, quite thin. And I'm going to sew a single layer of this, and we're going to see how that turns out. I'm going to do it without the IDT first, and I'm just going to do it on a straight stitch, and you'll see what happens. So if I take that off, in fact I've got that upside down. Should we do it the right way up? There we go. So needle down. Let's see what happens. Oh, okay. Can you see it's all curling up at the back? That's not flat at all. Okay, so I'm going to lift the foot up and I'm going to engage the IDT and pop that back down. Much, much flatter. Can you see? Now these are the sort of fabrics you'd normally try to stitch with an overlock or with differential feed, but I think you can see the difference already. This end is nice and flat, but this end is all gathered up, and that the difference between the two is the fact that the IDT was active on one and not the other. As you know, normally we would stitch jersey with not a normal stretch stitch, because if you try and actually stretch that, there is no give in the stitching. Unfortunately, there is in the fabric, so we need to just change this to a proper stretch straight stitch, which is number 17. It's what I call the, or normally known as the lightning stitch. I'm going to sew down the same side again, and I'm still leaving the IDT on because it can go backwards and forwards. It can do that lightning stitch. I'm going to lengthen it up a bit. It doesn't go very well in the short stitch length. So I've taken the stitch length up to 4mm. It's actually the length of a pattern repeat, so it is actually more than one stitch in that 4mm, so it gives you some idea. Right, let's just cut that. Take that out of the machine. And there is the stitching, and you can see immediately, if I get hold of that and pull, there is give in there, which we haven't got in the one above it. That's absolutely solid. So that's the two different lots of stitching. And that's the back. Yeah, so it can cope with lots of different fabrics, even the difficult ones. So let's move on to the next thing. Of course, the big thing with the IDT and the fact that it feeds evenly is if you're a quilter and you're dealing with lots of layers. So if we're dealing with something that looks like that, for instance, and you've got lots of layers, the IDT will keep them together and they'll not move against each other. Obviously, if you're doing a big quilt, that's the last thing you want, is that all your layers are moving and not staying where you've put them. The other thing is, if you're a dressmaker, for instance, and you're trying to match patterns, something like stripes or a tartan or a check, then they stay matched up all the way down the seam because you've got the IDT evenly feeding from the top and the bottom. So it's a really, really important feature of the machine that we're able to have that much control over how the fabric moves. Right, now we're going to move on to something a little bit heavier. I've got some denim here. I'm going to set it back to a straight stitch. I'm going to lengthen up the stitch a little, you would do for denim, so I'm just going to move it up to 3. And we're going to do something that looks like the flat fell seam that runs down the edge of your jeans. Let's just see how it performs with that. So I've folded it in half, right sides together. Going to do a 5/8 seam, which is, let's just drop that down, needle down, a wee bit faster than that. Okay. So there's our seam. I'm going to fold that over, let's do it that way, and I'm just going to stitch it down again so that it looks a bit like a flat fell seam. You'll see why in a second. Would normally iron this if I was doing it properly, but we're just doing it to show you, so okay, you get the gist. That's a little bit like the seam down the edge of your jeans. So I'm now going to just fold up a hem like that, and we're going to put it under the foot. That's it. Needle down, and we're just going to sew that. See how evenly that feeds. I just need a little help over the top there because there are about 9 layers there. Just give me a moment. You can just use this little jumper tool if you need to, just to lift the back of the foot up, and it still work with your IDT, that's no problem. And it just slides out the back when it's finished. That was easy. Can you see those stitches are all nice and even, and they look good on the other side as well. Just get that bit out where I started. Sometimes it gets the end of the threading. Okay, so it can handle thick stuff.